And we'll get back at it. So,
I know, right? You haven't.
so where we left off is, are you ready?
So we're going to review, going to try to review.
You want to go back through the other ones?
Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, and then we
Okay.
can move forward from there. So, the first one was number 2 we started at.
Okay.
And, yeah, we're fine with the changes, actually.
Okay.
The 2, and it's been signed. So we need one.
You know, last time we were signing 2 copies. You okay if we just both sign it and then we make?
Yeah, that's
copies
fine.
of
So in,
Just make sure we have stuff. Okay. You have to get a copy from us.
it? Yeah, I'm just going to leave them here.
Yes. This is going to be the 3 that we have. So
Sure,
it's
I don't have
together.
2
It's all
copies.
together. Give them the entire.
Okay, the whole package.
Yeah.
All right.
oh, here,
Give that back. That's just 3, I
Here,
think.
take it off.
Okay.
All right.
Fixed.
Whatever.
There's the 3rd copy. All right. Now we're ready.
Pass it down.
Whole thing down. Whole thing down. There we go. There we go.
Good?
We're good.
Okay. So in 3, we just, we made one change to 3 from your proposal, going back to the original, and that's in K. Transfer of employees from their assigned shift to another shift shall only be done if it's operationally necessary by request, if an opening exists, or promotion/demotion. So basically what we're saying is, management still has the right to shift change somebody from one shift to another if it's needed.
Okay.
Or if the employees say they want to go to a different shift for whatever reason, they have scheduling issues at home, and they're requesting it, and there's a spot available for them to go to it.
Okay.
Or if you need to do a promotion to move them into an open spot, or an unlikely chances of a demotion,
Okay.
and that'd be the next spot. And the main reason for that is we know that when you shift change somebody, it affects not just their work, but it's their home life, it's their scheduling, their time off, their vacations, seniority, everything gets affected by an overall shift change.
Okay.
And we haven't had any issues up until this point of arbitrarily shift changing people, but we just want to make sure that it's, moving forward, we're still covered.
We'll talk about that one. One thing that jumped out at me is where it says, if it is operationally necessary, by request if an opening exists, almost as if we're requesting it, but you mean by request of the employee. Hey, I want to move.
Yeah.
Yes,
There's a-
yeah. So if I come to you and say, hey, I want to go to B shift, there is no officer on B shift, is that, is it available? Can I do that? And you're like, well, yeah, there's staffing permits, there's actings on this shift, there's none on that shift, you can go over and actually go help out and fill the hole. So, that kind of thing.
Understood. That's the only change on 3.
Yes.
So just to have conversation for that later, consider what objective things would satisfy your definition of operationally necessary? And then further, how does that impact to balance the shifts if employee A wants to go to B shift,
Mhm.
and that would require me to move someone from B shift to satisfy that request? You know
Well,
what I'm
that's
saying?
why it says if there's a vacancy. So there'd have to be a spot for them to go to. So if I request to go, but there's no spot for me to go, you can't make somebody else go at my request. That's not what's intended. And to answer the first part, what operation necessary is, we're not changing just seat for seat. Like, we do the exact same job, we're not just arbitrarily changing him for me just because we felt it was necessary. It would be, like you said, to balance out shifts. We have 5 actings on this shift, none on this shift. We need to move somebody to balance out the acting so that we can properly staff the department, then we can move them.
Even out legs or,
Yes. You're just evening out.
positions.
Right, to make sure that the department is, is covered. We're not against the department, doing what they need to make sure that they have the positions filled. Is- Any questions or anything? No?
The only question I have, I'm reading through the other management's rights to see if there's any conflict, but does that belong in under its own letter?
It might. The only reason we put it there because it says to transfer, reallocate, reclassify.
Yeah.
That's what was put in the K, but we can make it its own letter if necessary.
So it would say permanent transfer of employees from their assigned shift, maybe under its own letter. Because to me, K says a temporary transfer up to 12 months.
Right, but I was, the way I read that is since it's commas,
Mhm.
it's not all combined.
Okay.
So, but if we're reading it that that's only a temporary, then yeah, that's fine. We can put it down as like, put it at the end or put it as the next one and make it a permanent transfer if you want, that's fine.
We'll talk about it.
So in 5, we have 5.4, at least we put in the business days, at least 7 business days that we talked about.
Mhm.
And then we went back and struck 5.5. Mainly because if you read 5.3,
Mhm.
it states, yes, you have to follow procedures and things, and if those procedures aren't done, it's in the contract that it can be grieved. So it's contradictory, and it takes away the ability for us to grieve something that isn't being followed. If we have a safety policy in place and the department decides not to follow that safety policy, which causes injury, it's a grievance to us,
Mhm.
we still need the ability to grieve that process or that policy.
I understand your out. Is that a deal breaker?
Is it a deal breaker for you?
I think so. I think so. Policies reach so far.
Okay.
You know. When they say everything in policy is subject to grievance. Yeah.
Well, it's not saying that everything in policy is subject to grievance, it's just saying that the district
Violation.
has to follow the
Yeah.
policies that
That
are
you
put
set
forth
forward.
that's expected to be followed.
All right.
Yeah, and there's still the ability to change the policy. If there's an issue with the policy that needs to be changed, we address and change the policy. It's not taking away from that.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to 7. 7.1 is struck. The reason 7.1 is struck is because we added back in the PPL time bank at 7.7. This is part of the original proposal, basically stating that 4 hours of PPL will be donated for each employee every January until it reaches 500 hours. Employee that's not a member of the union can opt out. Leave is listed above will be granted from the union time bank as long as hours remain in the bank each calendar year. So once it runs 0, there will be no time granted. Deductions from the bank will be charged at an hour-for-hour basis, but if the request creates overtime, then for each hour requested, the union bank will be charged 1.5 hours. Deduction requests from the time bank must be approved by the DVP and will bear said signature before the request is submitted to the department. So therefore, it can't just be somebody, hey, I want to take union time, and just takes time. It has to be approved for the DVP. It's for union business, things like that. And if the union member returns from 4 hours, the time will not be charged. So if we go, it's the same thing that was written in there before. So if I go to the union hall, there's coverage. I go down for the meeting on Thursday. I'm back in 2 hours. It's not, the time bank will not be charged. 7.2, we struck the after 18 hours, if approved by the fire chief.
Mhm.
Basically, just so that way, like I said, if there's union business, if Tim comes down because he has to talk to somebody, he can come down and talk to him. 7.5, we added in Union District 3 Vice President will not be subject to ordinary emergencies during negotiation sessions. We struck the rest of it. There's no need, and then we struck 7.8. With the 72 hours notice, approved 4 hours of PPL to attend by a monthly meeting because it's actually covered in the union bank time.
What happens if you go into a meeting, puts the truck at 2? Down to 2 personnel. What if I don't have an actor to fill your spot?
Well, this would be something we have to set up ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we'd have to have somebody come in and cover that spot,
Mhm.
or then I wouldn't go to the meeting. But the time bank itself is mainly for conferences, things like that. They want to send somebody to a conference. It doesn't count towards the 3 personnel. So it's when we're staffed and they're taking off, and so if it does create overtime for any reason, we go down to 8. Then you're taking 1.5 hours of PPL away to accommodate for the time and a half you're paying somebody to work that spot.
Yeah. Okay, so When we're up to full staffing, 45 members putting 4 hours a year in till we reach 500.
Mhm. And then once we're at 500, we stay there. We don't have to, we're not continuing putting in.
Any employee who's not a member of the union and does not wish to participate in the funding of the union bank may opt out.
Mhm.
Okay. Does that require them to quit the union to not fund this?
They would have to.
It says if any member of the bargaining unit that's not a member.
But if they are a member and they choose not to participate, is that option available?
No.
No.
So
They'd
do-
they'd have to drop out of the union to not contribute.
Correct.
You don't want this to be voluntary for you guys?
When you guys do it,
It's just
just everybody?
part of the membership. It's-
Everyone, yeah, everyone would benefit, could potentially benefit from it. Like, we have a new guy that wants to go to,
FPF. Or
yeah.
Go to
FPF.
classes there at FPF.
Let's learn about it.
We have a marked class.
It
coming
benefits,
up.
it's a benefit, it's not a hindrance. And once we get up to hours, it doesn't keep drafting, so.
I'm just trying to think of how this gets administered. You build another time bank and tell the staff and the codes. Pulling from a separate PPL bank. And then who's eligible to use that time?
It'd be, well, anybody, any actual member
Any bargaining unit member?
can use
As
the
long
time,
as
but it has
the
to be
UP deems
approved.
fit.
And is this time in addition to the 2 on PPL?
Yes.
Okay, how do you think operationally that's gonna work?
Well, that's where if it creates the overtime. So if we don't have 2 people off on PPL, it doesn't create the overtime, you're still taking to one person.
Okay, but let's
So
say
what-
you and Fernando both wanna go. And there's already 2 off on your shift. Then we're ordering people to backfill?
We would at that time, yes. And then, but like you said, when we're at 45, when we're fully staffed, that actually shouldn't be an issue, because we're 2 people, 4 people off, it still puts us above 11, be 15 per shift.
All right, we'll talk about it.
And like we said, it's for
I
conference.
could see
it's
it
for-
working at EMS, I mean, when they got 300 people.
Right.
I'm not sure operationally that works here, that it's guaranteed time off in addition to 2 on PPL.
There's small districts that also
have
do
as
it.
well.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the difference of.
Do the smaller
charging-
districts limit it to one person at a time to manage the issue?
I don't think there's not an expressed limit, but typically, the person using it is usually gonna be the DVP. There may be,
Right, but
you know, somebody
if he's
else.
training people up, I could see it being more than just Todd, if, you know, if conferences come up or whatever, where training
It's possible.
opportunities.
These conferences have been going on
Yeah.
all along.
Yeah, and there's times instead of the DDP going, they could just send the person training up to go to the conference, so they can get the education for it. And if needed be, maybe there's discussion, you know, communication-wise.
Yeah,
Operations, that's all.
some more parameters.
Mhm.
Would this be considered from the IAFF's perspective a fee, membership fee? Is this in addition to your dues? If you're imposing, I guess, a cost, is what I'm saying, how is it managed with your taxes? For instance, you write off your union dues,
That's not,
you've now
you haven't able to write off your
imposed a
dues for
fee.
years.
So,
It's no financial impact. There is no, we have, I'd say about 40% of our districts have
Yeah.
the union time bank, and there's no fiscal impact to it.
well, the 4 hours that I would contribute would come out of my personal bank, right?
Comes out of your work.
And that time has a value. If it's $25 an hour, I'm
So when an
paying
employee
$100.
uses vacation time or PPL in your guys' case, it doesn't affect your taxes.
Well, but I'm saying from the perspective of memberships or fees, would it be considered? What I'm trying to Chief's point is, if it's, can you impose it, or is it better just to leave it voluntary for a member to choose to contribute, or is an imposition of a fee.
It's not a fee,
It's
but
not
we,
a
just
fee.
the way we have them written.
We can discuss something too later. But mainly, it's kind of like the department-sponsored conference. You want to go to a conference, it's pretty much the same thing. We cover the time, but
Mhm.
it's union business instead of a department-funded conference, that's all.
Right.
Okay, so with that, that's,
So we were able to get through in that.
Yes.
The time span that we had.
All right. Then jump back in and keep going on the other ones?
Yep.
yes.
All right, so you have 16 in front of you. You'll notice on the first page, on 16.2, we added some language there to address recent changes in law. So it was that you could keep it dependent on insurance coverage up to age 26. That's been extended to 30. So this language says that if the employee keeps their dependent on insurance past age 25, so they turn 26, they can stay on up till they reach age 30 by law. But from 26, the age of 26 through the end, the entire cost would be on the employee to cover, and not a share with the district like it is for dependents that are under age 26. Okay.
Okay. And we'll get a list of the fees and stuff, how much that costs later, okay?
It's
And it
1,100.
changes
It's a-
every year.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it changes, so it's just
Yeah.
It's the cost of
what the
a
retiree.
single employee.
Okay. Okay.
I had more language in there about, what happens if the laws change or whatever. But
Right.
we just, if this violates the law, we know we have to do it. So
Right, yeah, No, that's
I
fine.
took it back out.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
No.
My elaborate filing system. We do kill a lot of trees, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
It's just one place.
This is actually no changes other than cleaning up some wording. 17.1, grammar checks had changed that with then, or with when. This benefit will be in effect for up to the first 12 months when the employee is unable to receive. And then the other one is just putting hyphenation in long term. That's it.
Get it on So, that's all.
Did yours have something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so on 17.6, we had struck 9 months from off-job injury illness to make it, it was 12 months for both.
Right. Your version of 17 went. Yeah, we're not interested in changing it to 12 months. I'm actually interested in considering even less than 9, but definitely not interested in going to 12.
And what's the
Why would
reason?
you be
for-
interested in lowering
And
that?
lowering, yeah.
Well, holding a spot for 9 months or a year, everything we're doing, we're talking about
How many spots are you
operational.
holding now?
Right now?
Yeah, you said full staff is 45 if you don't have.
No, I don't have 45, but I
So
don't
why
have.
would you look to get rid of someone who's looking to come back and just struggling medically to get back?
Because an off-the-job injury, they're already getting 9 months of short-term disability, and then they also have access to long-term disability. But to keep them here keeps me from filling a spot. If they get better and they're able to come back after short or long term, then they can come into the recall article. But how long do you keep an open spot in a small agency before you have to backfill it?
I would say when you have vacancies all along, it's not, you're only hurting yourself then. It's not like there hasn't been spots that you can fill already. When someone's already going through a medical issue or injury, and their full intent, they've been loyal to you, you're looking to cut them already, earlier,
No, I'm looking to support them, and I'm saying
by
that
firing them.
if I have an employee who can't come back to work, how long, what is the right number?
We proposed 12 months,
Okay, and we have 9 months,
and you just said you want to lower it.
but why is 9 months inappropriate for an off-duty injury?
We were hoping that you'd go to 12 months, keep it in line with the
workers'
Okay.
comp.
the workers' comp, and keep employees who have been good employees and would come back to be good employees.
Yeah.
Isn't, once you get into long-term disability though, there is no returning? Because once you're long-term, aren't you considered separated from the district? Because I believe
Well,
we had that.
under 12, yeah, under this in 12 months, yes, they're forced to be separated at 12 months. So that's in section 1, where the employee remains disabled after the first 12 months, the employee shall cease receiving the regular wages and benefits paid by the district. It's just like, it's the same thing that with the city, when somebody goes out on disability. Are there constant updates after they're out on disability? Are you remediated to come back? Can you come back?
Yeah.
So I think it would be the same. If the employee's able to get themselves back to the point where they can come back and serve their role, then yes, then they get consideration. But the question really becomes, how long do you hold a position before you,
But even, compared to city, we've had people that we've known long past that 12 months, that we know have needed a little extra time, and we've offered them that ability to,
yeah.
And
then the question becomes, how long what's the right number?
Correct.
Is it perpetual? Do you just maintain an employee who's disabled perpetually? And I think that's what we're talking about, is what's the right timeframe?
Well, I would
So-
think that if workers' comp says 12 months, then we would try and stick with the same thing across the board. Because an on-the-job injury at 12 months, like you get into a car accident in the engine,
Mhm.
you're out for 12 months,
Mhm.
you come back to work, you have 12 months. You get an on-the-job injury in your car leaving work in the morning,
Yeah.
and you go out in the same accident, 9 months, and you're now terminated.
Mhm.
I don't believe that's fair. I think it should, I think they should coincide at a minute,
Okay. She'll bring back a counter, I assume?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Which honestly is literally just striking the 9 months again, as we had it.
Pension and retirement is just changing the dates on the VIVA. Now, your proposal for pension and retirement did have upping the VIVA contribution to 3%.
Yes.
I did not include that 3%, but I would like to have some conversation.
Okay.
If the employee wants to up that contribution, then I think it would come out of when we get to wages, we would talk about the bucket of money. If they want to defer 1.5% more to the VIVA, that's fine. The one thing I would like to see, if you want to keep going with that, is that similar to the language that the city has, that the VIVA has some kind of verbiage in it about sustainability. I was only on a few of the meetings, but the auditor came in and talked about the sustainability of the plan when they were looking at, can we raise the benefits? And I, have some concerns about the long-term sustainability of the plan so that the new firefighters have access to it.
Right.
It takes them 15 years to vest, and I think it needs to be, so the language that we put together before the city started paying out benefits, or right about the time it started paying out, about the percentage formula.
well, your Your percentage is gonna be determined by your actuary study every 3 to 5 years.
So ours is a dollar amount.
Well,
Yeah.
that, whatever the amount.
That's what I'm talking about. So the, I could see the amount being adjusted every year based on the on the sustainability of the plan.
Correct.
So what I would like to see is if you want to increase the contributions, I'd also like to see the language, if you can bring a draft of that and present it to the VIVA board for adoption. I'd like to see something in there that guarantees that the newer folks are going to be able to have access to these same benefits.
Right, that's the idea of increasing it too, is to make sure that it is sustainable, so.
Right.
But, yeah, I understand.
And basically, the language the city has is basically that the plan can only pay out a certain percentage of the total balance each year. Is that, how's that work?
No. The board determines what the payout is based
Okay.
off of the feasibility study or the
Mhm.
study that's done every 3 to 5 years. We're very conservative on that base because we don't want to do what you're saying, going up, down, up, down, up, down.
Yeah.
And our selection of what the payout is, we've stated that, hey, we're going to stay at a very conservative amount, so we're not doing it. So we
Right.
want to, if we're able
But
to go up.
isn't it a percentage of the balance, if I remember right?
No,
Okay.
no.
So what are the parameters for setting that monthly payment?
Just,
Here's my concern, is more and more people move into retirement,
Mhm.
and our numbers here stay the same, because we're not building more stations, so when we get back to 45, I mean, we don't have room to build more stations and increase our working folks.
but your wages continue to go up.
I understand,
So what's going in there continues to go up as well.
but you're talking about a COLA on 1.5%. You're talking about the CPI of 1.5% of wages.
No, it's total wages, so as your wages here,
Right. But as the wages go up, as the cost of living changes and the wages increase,
Correct.
you're still, it's a small amount. I'd like to see the language that you guys have for that calculation.
I'll look at it and see what you say.
Yeah, and revisit it. So, I have concern for the long-term sustainability as more and more people go on the plan.
But you still continue to bring more people in.
If it's feasible, it's feasible.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see that and
When
see
was
if
the
there's
last time,
something.
when was the last time a study was?
A couple of years ago?
Okay.
Yeah.
It was when Jake was here.
Tom Edge had asked about raising it, and the presentation in there was, the plan is maintaining,
Mhm.
but they strongly cautioned against raising it, and even said you might need to see about lowering it, so I think that.
I can see that at your state right now, based off of your numbers have gone down over.
No, this was before the storm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was before the storm,
Okay.
so, and that's the point.
What did our next one do, our next feasibility study? Do you know?
Mhm.
I think at the last board meeting, they talked about, we only had 3 people at the meeting, so a lot of everything on the agenda essentially was tabled.
Right.
But it's on the agenda to discuss at the October meeting.
Can you bring your
Yeah,
language that you have
yeah.
as a template?
Hmm?
And will you bring it up for discussion with the Viva board?
Is Mark your attorney?
Yeah.
Mark.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
And then on the pension,
It was all about Viva, right?
Yeah, it was just a.
It's also-
Yeah.
any other questions on anything?
No.
All right.
Which one's next, 24?
19?
19.
original proposal?
Yes.
So what I'd like to do on 19 is, you guys had proposed a bunch of changes. Wasn't sure I really understood all the reason for the changes, so my counter to that, to be able to have something
Go back
was,
to it.
well, 19, 16, and 17, we agreed to add the peer support team that you guys had talked about. But beyond that, I'd like you to talk through 19 and let me know your thoughts on striking out.
Well, okay, so essentially in like 19.2, it's just verbiage cleanup. We know a controlled substance alcohol is legal. It's not something that we don't feel needs to be in there.
Yeah.
So that's what that is for right there.
It states it in the next sentence anyway.
Yes, yeah, it's already in the next one. The supervisor, is halfway down, supervisor is responsible for ensuring employee can perform specific duties. We left that in. The prescription of coming in and saying, hey, I take Benadryl, or I took a Benadryl this morning, in writing. It's a little excessive. If you see somebody, I get put on a blood pressure medication, I come in, I just tell my officer, say, yeah, I took blood pressure medication. It's my second time taking it. I don't know what the effects are. I think I watch them. I don't think, the idea is like, to put that all in writing to make it an official statement doesn't, it seems a little overkill.
Is there any harm to having more specific instructions for the employee, the brand-new employee who picks up the contract and says, okay, well, I'm prohibited from working, while impaired, but what's impaired mean? If you're using any of these things, including prescriptions or non-prescription drugs, I think the language in there is good guidance for, any employee who wants more detail. So my question back would be, is there any harm in leaving it like that?
I think guidance is also provided by the men and women that's working here as well, right? So it's our responsibility to make sure that we're going through this contract with those new individuals that are there,
Sure.
helping to explain what it is that they're having questions with.
And their employee handbook, when they get their policies, procedures, hey, you cannot, this is our drug policy. It all falls under the policy and the drug policy should be spelled out of what is impairment, what does that look like? So, yeah, like you said, yeah, we'll just move on to.
All right. So in 19.2, is there any harm in leaving the language that's there?
The only thing is, I would say, if you want to leave something about advisor, supervisor, you took something you're not sure of how it affects you, might be sleepy, but in writing, is that really necessary to say, hey, I just took a blood pressure medication for the second time today, and the officer's watching you
Yeah,
already?
I don't think that's the intent. I think the intent is, hey, I'm on this new med, here's the effects it has on me. And the supervisor says, okay, well, we got to evaluate if you're going to be able to do your job.
Right, but if you know the effects are you're too impaired to be there, then you're not allowed to take it there anyway. So that's what I'm saying. Informing your supervisor, hey, I'm taking new medication is one thing, but do we have to have it in writing is what I'm asking. Like, is that if I walk in and tell my lieutenant that day, hey, I took it's my second day on blood pressure medication, so if I look a little sleepy, let me know. Because I don't know how it's going to affect me yet. If I know that it affects me where I get tired, I can't do certain things, then I need to adjust my medication with my doctor because I shouldn't be at work taking it.
Do you think that protects the supervisor?
By them telling him? Or by them putting it in writing?
Yeah?
No.
Send him an email.
No, I think the supervisor
Hey, Cap,
should.
I got this, I'm on this new med, and here are the side effects. Then the supervisor, first off, has it in writing, and the supervisor can then consult with the employee.
Right, but it's also public record, which means if somebody requests, then now they know that they're on medication, that's nobody's business, that's HIPAA. That's my
And I'm good with putting something in here, because we do not want to know what the medication is, or even what it's for, simply that they're on a medication and it has side effects that affect their job. So if we need to clarify that language, I'm good with that.
Okay.
I don't want to know what the med is, I don't want them to feel like they have to tell me what their condition is.
Right.
But I'm on a medication, these are the side effects, okay, let me consider if that affects your ability to do your job. That's
Yeah,
the extent of it, so whatever the
Right.
verbiage looks like,
Yeah, there's not an issue, I think, with
Okay.
letting your officer know about that. That's not,
yeah. 19.3, it appears that we're trying to strike out random drug testing and the repercussions if you test positive under a random test. Is that really what we're shooting
So
for?
I think that, well, striking out random drug tests, I think we should do. I think having The drug test we have once a year, and if you have suspicion that you need to be drug tested, I think it still should be left in. So it gives the department the ability, if you see somebody who is impaired or see somebody that's going on, hey, I believe this to be the case, they can go get drug tested. But we don't do random drug testing anymore. We never did it before, then it got put in years ago.
Yeah.
And,
We were doing it before the storm, you're right.
right, and then it
Yeah.
stopped.
Mhm.
And it seemed and actually some of that didn't seem so random, to be honest. So
Okay.
to me, it's the ability for the department or the supervisor to look and say, this individual is impaired, he came to work impaired, something's not right. He
Yeah.
needs to be drug tested, is still there.
Yeah.
But to take out just a random, hey, go for a drug test today, for whatever reason,
Mhm.
it's putting hindrance on staffing. Is it done the same way? Do we have a system for it? I honestly don't think we truly need it. I don't think there's an issue. I don't think anybody has a problem here, you know?
Yeah. Have we had cases?
Where somebody failed a random drug test? Not that I'm aware of, no.
Not that failed a random drug test, but have we had cases that have affected the agency in the past?
As-
And that would be under the suspicion, right?
We've had cases where people have gone to take a random drug test and it caused a hindrance for staffing levels and things like that.
Okay.
That's back before but we haven't had, I don't think we've had issues with somebody going off for drug issues or anything else while on duty,
Okay.
unless I'm missing something.
You're missing something. But that's okay.
What am I missing?
I'm going back in the past.
Okay.
Nonetheless. Okay. So if we have nobody using drugs, random drug testing, other than the operational hindrance of getting people tested, you don't have an issue with random drug testing?
Well, I don't see why we need it, though. If we have the ability to send somebody off,
Yeah,
because there's a suspicion,
okay.
and we have the ability, we test once a year, or we
Yeah.
test during our things, then why do we need the random drug testing?
Okay.
That's all. It's like, I don't see the reason for it.
Does the drug-free workplace, I know I probably asked this in the last negotiations, do you know if the drug-free workplace policies call for random testing? Or not? Don't know?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you know? I almost feel like the federal work-free drug place laws,
I thought there had to be reasons to make suspicion.
When we discussed it with Preferred, it's one of their best practices.
okay.
It's a best practice that they encourage.
Let's see. Yeah. You got
Yeah.
something? Let's see, we originally struck the 72 hours without pay.
Right, we could probably jump to 19.4, right? Because everything in
Yeah, everything.
19.3 is involving what happens if you get caught in random, I think.
Yes.
Okay. And I assume you're going to come back with a counter to what I've given you.
Right, because well, if the random was a general suspicion,
Yeah.
then, but yeah, we'll bring something back to that.
What, from a mental wellness aspect, with everything that's happening in the fire service with mental wellness, how often does substance abuse become a contributing factor in mental wellness?
I do not know the stats. but
Yeah.
When you say substance abuse,
Well, yeah, I mean, people are having a hard time coping. Do they turn to substances as a way to cope? Is that a typical thing with mental wellness?
I mean, I think we can all say that it does happen here and there.
Okay. And when mental wellness gets to an advanced stage, does it manifest itself in kind of risk-taking actions? Is that kind of one of the flags with mental wellness?
I mean, that would still come up under suspicion, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Activities that are outside of the norm. Right?
Okay.
And you
Still-
cause
I mean, it's
arrest
different
suspicion.
for
Yeah.
every case.
Do you think the potential for random drug testing might cause somebody who might turn to substances to seek help sooner, rather than turn to those substances, where they might be a late-term identifier of an issue? Do you think they might seek help quicker if this is in place?
I would say no, because it's been in place. And so if we have an issue, or if there's, like you said, if there was an issue, and it's been in place,
Mhm.
and we haven't had an issue, then I would say no.
Okay, then is there any harm in leaving it like it's written?
If it's not necessary, is there any harm taking it out?
Well, I think we just, you
Yeah,
know,
to-
if
to your
insurance
point, you just
prefers it,
illustrated it is
it's
preventative.
demonstrating responsibility on part of the district to the
So-
insurance company.
So go back 6 years.
Mhm.
How did it work then? Before we had the random drug testing, did we have an issue? I guess my answer is still no. I do not remember any drug issues or substance abuse issues for members on the floor 6 years ago.
8 years ago, 7 years? Right before I got here?
Who was that?
Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah,
Right.
no, I'm trying to think. Like I said, I don't know of anybody that had an issue right before you got here.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So our position would be that there is no harm in leaving it as it is. And it's actually, I think it could be a benefit for an employee who's struggling. So you had proposed striking 19.4 as far as members having to be fit for duty. You want to talk through that a little bit?
I believe that was just struck because it's common knowledge. I don't believe it was struck for anything besides the fact that we know we have to be fit for duty, so
Okay.
unless I'm missing something. Yeah, I don't,
Again, no harm in leaving it then?
yeah, I don't.
All right.
Chief, I have a question. You're saying that the random drug test is for our benefit.
I think it's an accountability for the district. Like Chief
For the
had said,
administrative side.
on the administrative side, but I think if you have an employee who is struggling, and they, basically, if this would cause an employee, rather than to turn to substances, to get help sooner than they might otherwise, then I think it absolutely could be a benefit to the employee as well. And if nobody is doing drugs, then there's no problem with having them test for it.
Well, the reason I bring that up is we have the EAP program, and we have so many people that have just gone and gotten the peer support system.
Yeah.
So, in what you're saying, policing our own, I shouldn't say policing our own, helping to counsel our own, taking notice if I see someone acting a certain way.
Right.
Hey, have you looked into the EAP program? Have you talked to any of our peer support members?
Right.
I can see this from the standpoint of an administrative thing,
Mhm.
but I don't see how it's doing a random drug test and it just pulling a name of out of a hat.
Yeah.
You may very well never get the person that needs that drug test.
That's true. This is only
And that's why
one
I'm
tool.
saying that's why it seems so. How does that benefit you? Benefit the administration? If you may never randomly pick him while he's gonna potentially pop hot, I don't know. It just seems very.
Well, it's not specifically to prevent, or for the benefit of admin, right? It's, everything is designed for the benefit of the customer, always for the customer. Having outstanding and well and competent people, and people who are fit for duty, right, to service our customers is the priority. So if this in any way contributes to somebody deciding not to go down that path and reaching out for EAP, then it's a win. It's just that is what it is. And that's why I think it's a best practice from Preferred and other vendors, is that it's, there's only a benefit to it.
Yeah, and if you want to, look at it from this way, if insurance companies consider you a lower risk by the fact that you actually ran a drug test, they're in the business of making profits, there's a reason for it. It has a deterring effect. It's been in the contract for 3 years, it's caused nobody any harm.
How's your random personnel chosen?
So we used a random generator, a third-party company, and I know you said it feels targeted. I think I got hit 4 times in 2 months or something. It was crazy, unless they thought something was going on, but
Well,
it is
no, it is
random. I can
random.
confirm, it is random.
Through Global HR.
Yeah. And
They
so that
provide you
process.
names once a month? I don't know.
The way that it worked is that they would send us a list. I mean, we give them the employee,
All the employees
all the
in the district?
employees, and then we tell them how many, and maybe that was part of the issue, was you know, we have such a small pool, and we were picking, you know, 5 or 6 people from the pool
Every month.
every month, so that's, you know,
So
that's
you-
probably
and
a bigger number.
So
Did
it
they
is-
send us the packet with all the paperwork and everything
Yeah,
prepared?
yeah, everything was pre-printed
It
from
was
the
right.
vendor. They would,
So is the plan to just leave the verbiage in there, and then if it happens to come up later, we do that? Or is the plan to start doing this monthly random drug test again, I guess would be the question.
What I would say is let us get an HR person on board, and, you know, it probably is something we would go back to doing.
Does showing insurance that we're doing random drug tests, can that potentially lower our premiums?
Yeah.
If we pop negative? So
well,
No,
just having
it.
the
Having
policy.
just,
Right.
just having the policy in place lowers your premium?
Do we have those figures by chance?
Because I guess my ask would be, if that be the case, if that would be something that we've shown that the district has gone this long without an incident,
Mhm.
could we see any of those?
They do it by policy. In other words, we show them the policy, and then they determine if there are certain policies that you provide to them that help lower the premium.
Now, is that covered under the BOCC?
No.
No, it's
So
not.
this is a spin-off of our own?
This is the same carrier
There's no
that does
vendor.
workers' comp.
In the contract, there's no vendor.
You said it's in the contract, but there's no vendor? Meaning there used to
It's
be?
not being
In
done.
20 years I've been there,
Okay.
there's never been a single random drug test.
Okay.
But it's there to lower your premiums. For county. Good. Good, that's good.
So my question was on the fit for duty 9.14. You know, it's just like we arbitrarily just making statements out there, right? We understand the member has an obligation to be fit for duty throughout their employment career. And is this something truly, we need a mission statement within the contract? Because that's what it feels like. I mean, at the end of the day, the statement, it's just a statement.
Right. That's why I struck out in the
That's-
first place.
that's why I was taking
Okay.
it.
Because we just know.
Yes, we
We have-
agree. Members should be fit for duty. We have a whole thing about being fit for duty, right? So continue to just make these statements over and over and over, just for ink and paper purposes in the contract.
Yeah, you know that paragraphs make it into contracts because something happened, right?
Well, like 19.7, well, which would be 19.8
Well, we have a-
on yours.
Yeah.
The first sentence, members are required to be medically and physically capable of performing essential functions of their job description,
Mhm.
which is the same, members have an obligation to be fit for duty throughout their employment. So fit for duty, mentally, physically, it's all that.
Okay.
So I'm saying, it's all just, like, just verbiage cleanup is taking some of the,
I mean, 19.6 in yours talks about fit for duty. I mean, the whole section there just for fit for duty.
Yeah.
So it's just some of the stuff I think in here, like you said, yeah, it was may have been for a purpose or a person,
Mhm.
but in actions of cleaning up some of the stuff that just have statements out there. Just to,
Yeah.
that was my 2 cents on it.
One of the things to keep in mind is that when you have to approach a person who isn't cutting it, and you try to explain to them, you're not cutting it.
Mhm.
What's your defense to that when you're sitting with that person?
When they're not cutting it.
Yeah, so if I have to bring in an employee and say, look, you're not, you know, you weren't cutting it. You weren't able to lift, you weren't able to bend, you weren't able to do these things you needed to do on that call, what happened?
Wasn't that determined by their fit for duty testing they would do annually? You have some
So
kind of-
your response to that is,
You have some
you
kind
know,
of backing to that.
where are the details of what fit for duty looks like? Okay, so they're here. And when we take out the details and we say we're cleaning up language, what we're doing is we're taking out the details that will help somebody explicitly understand what it looks like to be fit for duty. Which is exactly the argument you're going to make when you come sit with the employee. You're going to say, well, you don't have it specifically dialed in exactly what fit for duty is.
Was the fit for duty is determined by the standard,
Okay?
right? Not this statement here. This statement doesn't determine what fit for duty is.
Okay. All right. So I'll go back and again ask, is there any harm with the language being the way it is? Even if it's redundant, other than burning up an extra page of paper.
It's many of them in this contract, I tell you that. It's a
All right.
lot of them.
All right.
Yeah, and then 19.7, we struck the original, your 19.8.
Yeah.
It's the same sentence. Are required
That was the
medically,
one- that was the one you
medically,
read, right?
psychologically capable of performing essential job functions.
Okay.
Let's see, uniform standards provided. And then again,
Minimum performance standards?
it's the same thing as the,
Okay. So you want to strike the language that says the employees have to be,
no, we just want to have one spot that says employees are fit for duty, and
Yeah.
then all the other ones that say employees are fit for duty,
Mhm.
we can get rid of it because we already have it, it's listed. We don't need it, that's all. We're not disagreeing with fit for duty is, we're just,
okay,
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole section of
okay. Health and wellness?
19.46. Whole section.
Under 19,
yes.
what was, you marked as 1980, or actually 1909?
Yes, we left in 19, year 1910.
Mhm.
We left. Oh, group activities and contact sport. We understand contact sports,
Mhm.
but group activities, if we're working out together, playing, pickleball, doing things like that, they're not contact, they're just
Okay.
exercise or activities, so,
I could go with just the contact sports.
okay. Yeah, they get no playing football on duty.
So 1912 is struck.
Physical fitness training, which exhausts them. Well, we do that, so if we want to put that back in, that's fine.
Mhm.
We should also add in, should not perform any specific training, just take out physical fitness and just leave training, which exhausts them beyond their control.
Mhm.
So if members shall not perform training which exhausts a member's energy level, leaving them unable to respond to actual emergencies.
Mhm.
So, and take out physical fitness.
So members shall not perform any training?
Which exhausts them from, to the point where they cannot respond to emergencies. I understand that don't get on a treadmill, run for 12 hours, and then go and lift and, get in a rhabdo and you can't do anything.
Well, this is, last time when we put this language in, what we were talking about is members were, lifting, their extreme weights and ripping
Right.
the shoulders, they were
Right.
wearing themselves out to the point they couldn't lift their arms up. I mean, they've worked out like that before. And,
Yeah.
it wasn't smart. So that was the reason for that, so.
Right. No, we think everybody has the general understanding that we don't go and do something crazy where you lift legs all day long and you can't climb the stairs.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that, so,
As long as we capture that, that's the intent of 1912.
right? Especially in Station 3 zone where it's all.
But you know it has no elevator, so you gotta save some. Oh, man, an essential function, so 1913, what was your thoughts there?
I gotta find it again, 'cause I'm all.
To be
Everything
fair,
moves
this was
around.
copied over from 15s. We had long discussions with
Right.
Mark and our attorney when we did 15's contract on these items.
So 1913 is our actual 1912, right? No.
Isn't this-
1913.
The essential functions, yeah, an essential function of the company officers to ensure the mission readiness of their assigned personnel.
Isn't this like in their job description? Like, isn't this their
Well,
job?
Go back to 19.2, the supervisor is responsible for assuring the employee can perform specific duties.
Mhm.
That's the same, it's the same thing.
Right.
So, I think that's the whole point, is like, it's listed there, so why, we're just.
Well, and so the reason for the bullet points, again, we talk about these things and they make it in writing because you're trying to address something, and we've had an uptick in cases where young, healthy people end up in the emergency room because they're dehydrated, they're tacking out, because they have to pack out and go into a fire when they're downing Red Bulls, or they're pushing themselves beyond exhaustion when they're working out. So that's the reason these things end up in here, in this kind of specificity.
Right.
So
But
that's
some-
why in number one, we're saying we assure every member limits the use of substances that stimulate increased heart rate and blood pressure while they're on duty. we discourage them from excess caffeine intake, and we encourage them to monitor the mental well-being of themselves and their teams. Those are the things that we're specifically asking the officers to do. If the officer doesn't know what it looks like, now you have at least 3 bullet points that say, these are the minimum,
But
feel
how-
free to expand from there.
How does the officer assure that every member limits the use of the?
They see them doing it, they have conversations in the morning,
Well,
What's to determine what's excessive intake for an individual? What's
And that's
excessive
why,
to you?
and that's why it says discourage, because if you see somebody and they're hitting the espresso machine 3 times before, they go out to train, it's probably an educational opportunity for an officer to go, look, do you understand what that does to your body? And by virtue of people ending up in the hospital who are young and healthy because they're tacking out, I don't think there's any harm in giving some explicit guidance to the supervisors of how they can help.
I think from our aspect, we're just looking at, it puts more of a liability on the officer. So when you turn around and the officer.
100%.
Right, so if we go into a building, it's 112-degree real feel outside.
Yeah.
And you pack out and they were doing training,
Mhm.
live fire training, whatever it is, and they get back to the station and we got a structure fire.
Yeah.
Oh, the guy had a cup of coffee and get back to the station, that's the officer's fault, he shouldn't have drank caffeine knowing that he was already training all day.
Well, it's more about being proactive. When you come in the morning and you're sweating because it's going to be 90 plus, then you go, hey, do you really want to be putting that in your body when you could be running 30 flights, 20 flights? That's the point.
We can say the same thing about anything, Chief, right? About nutrition, diet, everything, right? We can say that
Yes.
about everything, but we don't have that in the contract either. So, I
think
think
maybe
the
more
ultimate goal, I think we understand as members that we are in a career and job field that requires us to do things, and we have to stay
Yeah.
fit to those abilities. So I have to put it in the contract saying that I want you to discourage caffeine use, excessive caffeine use.
Well, yeah, because everything in here talks about the employee is aware of what the responsibilities are. And now the supervisor is aware of what his responsibilities are, but we can't hold the supervisor, we're holding the supervisor accountable for what the employee's responsibilities are.
Yes, 100%.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, because you can discourage excessive intake, that's fine, but you cannot enforce excessive intake. You cannot, excessive intake to me is excessive intake to somebody else is different. That person might have their 3rd cup of coffee, but they've also drank a gallon of water the hour before that you didn't see. So,
Again, I go back to, is there any harm in having the language the way it is?
well, if we're just talking about holding the officer accountable for the person drinking an energy drink and then catching a structure fire, then yes. Because that employee knows what the job is as also.
Okay.
So to me, it's like you're going to hold the supervisor responsible. He knew what the job was.
Right, to discourage it.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
it says here in 1, assure that every member limits the use.
Yeah,
So you're assuring. It's not that you're discouraging it, you're assuring it.
okay.
So if you want to discourage excessive intake, that's fine. Hey, I don't think you should drink excessive coffee. But to assure they limit the use of that,
Mhm.
I don't see how you assure that.
How's that documented? Does the officer have to write up, hey, I told Manito not to drink coffee this morning?
I would think so, yeah. If that's the case, if they're having the conversations and you log that, however the supervisor is logging their conversations with their employees, do you understand what this could do to you? Yeah, Cap, I understand, okay. Because you're right, ultimately it's on the employee, but as supervisors, we have to supervise. And sometimes that's saying, hey, you're missing the mark here, or I just want to make you aware. You understand
Right,
what
and
this
that-
stuff does to you.
And that comes up if you see somebody who's out and they get excessively dehydrated and they have an incident, you're like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing, and you're talking to them then.
Yeah.
But to assure that on a daily basis, how much caffeine they take, it just seems a little,
Yeah.
excessive. It seems
Mhm.
like it's not very manageable, especially when there's so many other things that you're managing.
If you had that conversation with the employee in the morning, and they did tack out, working out, would you, if you were investigating that situation, consider that a factor in the cause for the tachycardia?
If the employee had a medical incident where they were tacking out, we had to do a medical report and do everything on them.
And you had talked to them the morning of.
And I talked to them in the morning of, because it was excessive already in the morning.
Mhm.
Yes, but how do I determine what's excessive first thing in the morning?
You told them because he had one cup of coffee? Now
Right, it
you're
doesn't.
And I'm not talking about that, but if you see the guy pounding a second Red Bull, and, you know, and he's sitting at the table talking about how jittery he is, or whatever the case might be.
Right.
As a supervisor, that should be a cue for you to go, hey, you know, you might want to consider what that's doing to you and the potential, the risk that you run.
Right, which is, the second one, discouraging, I get, but the
Yeah.
assuring, can't assure somebody not to drink coffee. Or it's,
I think we should move on to 20. We'll come back to
Yeah. So anyway, you have ours.
Chief, I have one more thing, if we don't mind.
Sure.
If someone gets transported
Mhm.
because of something to do with caffeine, can the officer be disciplined for this?
if they're held accountable. Mhm.
According to that language, yes.
Potentially. Yep. But at the end of the day, if somebody goes out on a call and they die, right? If you're out training, if you're out on a call, if you die, everything gets looked at. We know that. The whole agency gets looked at. You're an agent of the district. They're supervisors with commission. That's their job duty, is to identify these issues that could cause their people harm and to be proactive in it. So by all means, is the district potentially liable?
For a person drinking a Red Bull? No.
Yeah, for knowing that the employee is putting this stuff in their body and knowing that they could potentially be called on in a call to take their heart rate to 100%. You don't think the agency has a liability?
You're the only contract in this county that has that, so I would say no.
But do you think the agency has a liability?
No, not for a Red Bull.
Okay.
How do you determine what they drink, what they do on their way to work?
I don't. I can't.
So that's what I'm saying, so they
But
have
the
that
point is, we
first
can only
drink in the
address
morning.
what we're aware of,
And then when do we address it? Like, when do we assure that it's too much?
proactively.
But how do we assure what's excessive? That's
Well,
all.
I don't think we can, which is why we're using discourage. If that first bullet point, assure, is too strong.
It is, to me it
Yeah.
is, because now I'm having to assure that something's being done, and I have no way of assuring that that's being done.
And so if number one said discourage every member from using substances that simulate increased heart rate, would that solve the problem? Would that be sufficient?
Yeah, if you really need to keep the language in there, then yes, it's discouraging, or,
Yeah.
because then it's, we discourage it, but then again, how do you document it? Is it verbal? Because if in the morning meetings, hey guys, don't drink too much coffee today, I just discouraged it.
Mhm.
So I shouldn't.
Right. And then if something happens, you're gonna, when you go to write that up, you're gonna say, you know, the employee was discouraged, you know,
Right.
was counseled on best practices, right? So, all right.
Okay.
So you had two changes on Article 20, which is shift exchanges. John, you're not seeing it up there. You had proposed taking the 432 hours, or actually you struck that out, the 15 shifts. We put it back in.
Okay.
That's 15 shifts for the employee to be off-duty, not 7 off-duty and 8 working for others. So it's 15 shifts that the employee can be off-duty from their normal shift. And then our copy So in our copy, you guys had proposed striking at the discretion of the fire chief, employees filling a principal officer role. I assume that was because of the changes in 7?
Yes.
So what I would say is, once we figure out 7, we'll figure out what language goes here, if any.
Okay.
Okay, for now, I have it back in there. Those are the changes on 20.
So looking at 20, if you look at C,
Mhm.
what if, like a flip-flop was to not count towards those hours? So you're.
I just think, I mean, our mandatory is creeping up again. We're, I think, 15 shift exchanges on top of PPL.
Right.
Um,
Well, you're still here that day or the day before or after, and if somebody's covering your spot.
Yeah,
So you're not taking the day off and then repaying it back later, it's just a flip-flop, so I don't,
yeah.
But also, yeah, I mean, you transport here, so you're gonna
Mhm.
encourage your individuals to go to medic school or take classes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the way to handle that is through these shifts. 15 shifts to try to get through a medic school is nowhere near what's gonna be needed.
Mhm.
You know, you're encouraging, we just talked about last time, you were encouraging, people to attend, I think you had a class up in, what,
CFT.
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
So we,
But you were covering those, I understand that, but, educational reasons, I think those better used is a shift swap, because you're gonna have so many different things happening. And limiting that at 15 kind of binds the hands of the employee.
we're up to 18.
Yeah,
And
it's
if
18.
and if they're doing
Huh?
the swap,
18.
it's actually reducing the overtime, because they're not taking the PPL. So it would save the, because their spot's covered, it would save the actual overtime, it would save the mandatories.
The big thing, and I think, just consider this in the context of your argument for not being moved off your shift and the shift swaps, really trying to wrangle people getting moved around, is there has to be, the only way to achieve consistency, right, is guys have to work on their shifts so their supervisor can supervise. Todd's guys gotta work with Todd, so Todd can supervise him, so he can monitor progress and deficits and all those things. So if you're alluding to that we can do unlimited flip-flops, well, then you can work whatever shift you want to work. And then the supervisor can't really become familiar with their team to supervise it well. You know what I mean? So the thing is to maximize efficiency of the supervisor. Have the supervisors build their teams, develop their teams. If the team is not consistent, I can just tell you, I wouldn't advocate for anything that would dilute that.
So what do we do with the acting officers that ride up so we have actors that ride up almost every day, but then they're getting switched with an officer, or they're back and forth, down, up, down, up.
Mhm.
It's doing the same thing, it's not really consistent.
We
'cause it's not
we
really-
continue to encourage guys to get their certifications, make them eligible to promote and become full-time officers. We continue to advocate for that, we continue to support it.
Chief, to your point about deficits,
Yes, sir.
if we're talking about contractual, you have to be able to do the job, and you have to be able to hit all these things. If you, being the officer, are seeing it, and you don't see a deficit, and then I go to another shift, and another shift sees it as a deficit, are the deficits on the contract or on the skills the firefighter should be able to perform? Are they being performed, and are they being judged and monitored in the same light?
Yeah, that's-
Because if I work for you, and then I go work for Todd, if I didn't have a problem with you, but I now have a problem with Todd, is that because we're not a huge department. You can't really get lost like you can at like PBCFR, Miami-Dade. So you know what I'm capable of. Todd knows what I'm capable of. Hell, Eric would know what I'm capable of. It's just coming down to, I guess, working in and around our small district. We are tighter, so we know when someone has a problem. And it's not kept between one and the other. Hey, yeah, we need to work on this employee. He's having a deficit. He can't throw a ladder to save his life. Okay, well, he should be practicing throwing ladders.
So if I need to concentrate on you throwing ladders, and you're only gonna be here for 3 out of your 10 shifts next month, but you'll still be at work.
But I'm still at work.
But I
with-
can't
with
correct the
another officer.
deficit. But
But isn't it held to the employee who's not able to throw the ladder to take it upon himself to be able to practice, work on it, work out, to be able to throw that ladder?
I agree, personal accountability, yeah, is always it, but.
I'm just saying,
you know,
like, a deficit's a deficit, so whether you're on A shift, B shift, or C shift, if it's across the board, it shall be the same.
We should have a minimum standard. We do have a
We
minimum
do.
standard, right? So people have to meet those minimum standards. If there's a standard, a deficiency that's recognized, you know, and we want the company officer to help that person work through that, to have you being taught, you know, a different way to do it might be problematic, you know what I'm saying? So until the cohesion exists with training with the standard across all the shifts from all the officers.
I was gonna say, that's the big
That's the
problem.
bigger thing. So that's what I'm saying. For me personally, I'll just say, and be very plain about it. I don't advocate for anything that has people wandering all over the place, not in a malicious way. But we want to build strong teams, and consistency, the way to do that is through consistency. Guys need to be with their team, or it's arbitrary.
But the point that we're making is, it's not about the guy being with their team, it's that the person's gonna take their time off. I need the shift off. I'm taking my shift off. I can either get a swap and have the shift covered where it doesn't cost any department money, or I can take PPO and the department's gonna pay time and a half to cover my spot. And if the department's willing to pay time and a half for something that I would've had somebody do for free, then that's fine. We need to call it what it is. And say, okay, I mean, I get the idea, you need to be with your officer, you need to be with your supervisor. I'm the supervisor taking the day off. I'm gonna take
But does the
16
shift
swaps.
exchange take those two people out of the mix for overtime?
Yes.
Okay. So,
What do you mean? Oh.
okay, so when Todd changes shifts with Sean, neither one of them are eligible for overtime.
For mandatory.
overtime,
Voluntary, yes.
yes. All the way either side of that,
Okay.
of that exchange.
Yeah.
So what happens is it takes people out of the mix of who can work
But you're
mandatory.
mandatory because the district hasn't filled its positions. It's not, is it not?
We're at 11 with a minimum of 9, so we're covering our 2 PPL, so yes.
So you're saying.
So most of our mandatory overtime would be tied to UPPL, so unscheduled call-out.
You have one station now. You decided to.
Yeah, but we have the right personnel for 2 stations.
Correct. You decided
Mhm.
to bring your staffing down to take care of the 2 stations.
Mhm.
If 2 people, you got 2 people off on vacation?
Yeah. We have 6 officers for 6 spots. We have 7 drivers for 6 spots. And we have all the firefighters to cover all the firefighter spots. So our staffing is sufficient for 2 stations.
Until we have workers' comp injuries and things like that, then that covers the extra person.
Which
So
that doesn't
it's not-
matter regardless. It
Right.
could be 3 stations, 4 stations, whatever.
Yeah,
That's
it doesn't
still
matter.
the same.
Mhm. And then once we have those injuries, then that's what causes our overtime and our things.
Right. So our scheduled time off is covered. The extra staff needed to cover the scheduled time off is needed. It's when it's unscheduled time off for the
Exactly.
other events.
So what I'm
Yes.
saying is, this is helping you because what you're gonna get is unscheduled time off.
No, what happens is when the employees are doing the shift exchanges, they're out of the mix for being able to fill a vacancy.
But there wouldn't be the vacancy if they're doing the shift exchange. So if you look at the other way, so I'm doing a shift exchange instead of taking the time off.
Yeah.
So therefore, my time off, there's other employees doing the shift exchange to get out of my spot,
Mhm.
they wouldn't have to do it because I have my spots covered. I have the shift exchange.
Okay. All right. And you think 18, we start out with 122 shifts a year. In 365 days, we start working 122 days before PPL, before any shift exchanges. So we're given 18 shift exchanges, and that's...
15.
You say it was 18?
Is it 18?
It's 18.
Is it 18?
I thought it was 15, but the numbers don't work at 436
We
hours.
increased it by
So it's
72
18.
hours last.
Okay, so it's 18 shifts.
Okay.
So nearly 10% of your total scheduled workdays in a year can be covered by shift exchanges already.
Right, but you're still working those days, you're just doing them on a different shift.
I
You're not-
understand that,
yeah,
but you're
so-
able to get off of your scheduled day, the day you're accountable for. You start the year, you're accountable for 122 shifts.
Correct, shifts. I'm accountable for
Yeah.
shifts, not my shifts. I'm
Right.
accountable for shifts.
But
So-
you can be off your shift, and shift exchanges alone, 10% of the time.
But you're not off shift, you're on a different shift.
I hear you.
So that 10%, so like you said, yeah, it's 10%, you're not working your scheduled shift.
Yeah.
But it's 10%, you're working somebody else's scheduled shift.
But you
So
still
you're-
should get some valuable information or training or whatever.
Right, yeah, you're still working, you're still you're still here doing the job.
Yeah.
You're just doing it on a different shift for that day.
Okay.
And I understand what you're saying about the flip-flops causing, or the shift exchange causing the mandatory overtime, but we look at it from the other side, where if I'm able to take a shift exchange instead of burning my time,
Mhm.
it's going to stop somebody being mandatory for that time, especially right now.
Mhm.
And if people get close to the end, they're like, oh, I had 18 because I had a baby, or something else happens, then it's, what do? They're gonna take their time, so, but,
Okay.
That's the number 18 is pretty restrictive as well. Like I say, somebody that's going to school, I can get 18 real quick.
that's
How
where it
many,
comes
how
down
many
to.
guys are in school?
I don't know how many guys you have in school. I'm just saying,
Okay.
someone that's in
Medical
school can definitely.
But we're getting ready to hire next year, if we're gonna hire 6 or 9 people.
We hire them. So we don't send anybody.
Well, Sophie just went to paramedic school, and then stopped. But what I'm saying, but we did hire EMTs, so what I'm saying is,
You're right.
the idea,
The AMT, getting through paramedic school takes a lot of days.
right, well, and doing your bachelor's, you
Yeah.
get, you wanna take paramedic school, you're doing your associate's, your master's, your bachelor's, you don't have time to do it at work. We're doing other stuff, you don't have time to do your classes while you're on shift, you're doing them at home, and you're doing them when you're, so you take the day off to do an extra class. I don't think it hurts,
All right.
but,
Sounds good.
all right.
That's our proposal. So basically, our proposal is to
Keep it as it is.
keep it as is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then, like I said, we're open to whatever we figure out on Article 7
Yes.
and item J.
Gotcha.
Hang on. I'll give you one copy, Jim. One copy. There's two pages there. I'm tired of paper coming together.
Oh, that
Might be
mistake.
4 pages. All right, Article 21, you had struck out a bunch of language, starting on 21-2.
Yeah, the bill plan is being put on insurance employees.
Yeah.
I understand.
You had asked for different starting and ending times, 0700 to 1800. And so I put 0700 to 1700 because we don't intend to work our 40-hour folks past 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that's why it was stated.
Yeah.
Starting at,
Mhm.
no earlier and then later than, but you understand.
Right. The reason I kept our language is our language allows us to do either 8 or 10 or 9-hour days or whatever we figured out. We've voluntarily switched from 8 to 4 10s, and we're on a trial basis with our 3 life safety specialists. And so that's working good, but they also understand that if it doesn't work out for the operations of the life safety branch, that we might have to go back to 5/8s. So the language as it's written allows us to do either or something in between. Okay? It struck out the language that we had worked out last contract or contract before on identifying employees who either want to work through their lunch, which is what most of us in admin do, or if they want to take a scheduled break, then it extends their workday.
Mhm.
The guys understand that, so I left that language back in there.
Okay.
Again, no harm in leaving it, and it gives clear directions for the newer folks that are hired.
Okay.
Okay?
21.4,
Yeah.
did change.
Yeah, so you were proposing that if I'm reading this right, that all hours worked during a state of emergency, so your normal hours would be time and a half, and regular overtime hours would be 2 times normal pay?
Yeah, I believe, isn't it, I was under the understanding that it was reimbursed from FEMA that way?
Maybe,
As long as it's written in the contract, yeah.
maybe.
Well, yeah, that's why it was put in. If it's being reimbursed from FEMA for 2 times the hourly rate, then why would we not pay the employee the 2 times the hourly rate?
Depends on what you have. And then, of course, you have to do your filings and everything else. Of course.
Here's what I would say, like Jane said, maybe. So if FEMA doesn't reimburse you, or they find it excessive for whatever reason, they choose not to reimburse you, then it's an extra hit on a taxpayer who's probably suffering during that same state of emergency.
So what if we put in the ability, if FEMA reimburses it for 2 times, and that's when we reimburse 2 times?
I don't think that would fly with
Yeah,
FEMA.
that won't-
Yeah, that's not
No,
gonna
it
fly
won't.
with them,
Okay.
You won't know that until the,
until they say
For
yes or no.
years.
It could be 2 to
Could
3
be
years.
years.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, no, it doesn't hurt to ask, but I do know they'll frown on language that says you can get more money if FEMA's paying for it.
Well, you have to-
The
you have to
whole-
write it differently.
You have to
than
do
that.
it the same either
Yeah.
way.
yeah, the whole point of it is
Yeah,
the fact that you're still working, that person, that taxpayer, whatever it may be, they're dealing with something, yes, but you're dealing with their issues as well.
absolutely.
And it's beyond the circumstances of, so.
Okay. I propose we leave it as it is.
Is it the fun article?
At least the paper goes.
Yeah.
Are we getting into 22 now?
No. We're getting into 23 now. I think I have one of your copies.
Medical
Have an extra copy?
privileges.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, 24. I have 24. 23 is done.
24.
Oh, that's
20
T8.
Yeah, 23 is the 24. It's gonna change. Do you have changes? I don't think you had changes either, unless you planned to have changes.
And
You didn't
20.
submit anything for 24.
Well, 24 was, wait a minute, 24 was pay, was it not?
No, 22 is pay.
22?
No.
Oh,
I
we
jumped
skipped,
over.
oh my God, you're messing me up here. Okay. No, we did have the changes for 22, or 24 originally was to 70%. If going back, for the testing instead of
I was gonna say, I
80%.
don't have it.
Did we not?
Yeah, I don't think,
present it?
I don't think you submitted
And
that.
then
If you,
we present
It wasn't presented?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we got some stuff. Yeah. Did you missing a copy?
No.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, no.
I've got my 24, but do you
We didn't
guys?
present, we didn't present.
All right. Okay, so ours is no changes, and it sounds like you're coming back with something.
Yes.
All right.
That's why it's over here. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, not right now. So, you want to wait on this?
Yeah. I mean, you can
Cool.
talk about it, but.
Do you need copies?
No, that's what.
Yeah, we'll wait, so that way I can review and come back with you.
Okay.
The way that was put up there, I thought it was the last time I went here.
26 is just prevailing rights, and I have no changes. I need to give them out to everybody, or?
Okay.
No, I don't need to.
Sign that. Here, I'll do this one. Or you do that one. Woo-hoo. Progress.
That's two.
Right on this paper. It's notepad.
No change in 26?
26 TA.
Two, no changes. 27. Last time we met, I said I wanted to bring some language that would address the potential for a forced merger. So this is what I drafted up, and I'm open to ideas. I think we need to put more in there. I didn't know exactly what to put, so. In the event of a forced merger or dissolution of the district, this agreement shall remain valid throughout its duration. Any subsequent governmental entity which retains the members protected by this agreement shall adhere to the terms of this agreement in its entirety.
I would want to run some stuff by Mark.
Okay. You think that there needs to be more?
Well, some of the, like, to me, like, any subsequent governmental entity that retains the members, how do we have another agency retain this agreement? Like, how do we, I don't know if we can
That's what
legally force
we had
that.
talked about that last meeting. I don't
You know?
even know if it's enforceable.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if it is, so.
But it's one of those things, if we don't put it in there,
Yeah, that's why
I'm just trying to put something in there that gives some protection to the members. So, if we need to beef it up or
Yeah.
whatever.
I would say, at what point, what, if the district is, there is a dissolution of the district, then if this isn't enforced, what rights do the employee have to come back on the district for them not, the new entity not following this?
There'd be no district.
There'd be no district come back on.
District to come back to.
Right, so it would, how would that work? So, yeah, it's,
It's basically it's an assumption clause.
right.
Somebody else assumes us in any fashion, then they have to assume the contract.
So then we better.
Talk to Mark,
so-
if he had,
Oh, I definitely-
yeah,
yeah.
put some legalese to it.
Well, if we can do that with the contract, we're gonna make this the best contract of everywhere.
I'm-
I mean, if you
that's what I'm saying.
if you wanna stop a forced merger, then what you do is you make this contract so lucrative that nobody can afford to take it on except for us.
That is a method.
I mean, deal with some of the departments.
If we can-
Right.
We'll go better than theirs then. That's what I'm saying. So we'll just have to,
Yeah, you may want to go with
See?
something else. So, all right. But that's the intent. So, I assume you're not ready, you're going to talk to Mark on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
my brother.
28, duration, that is just dates and verbiage.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think we can sign this one. Take a look at it.
Do you guys have openers?
Yeah.
Mutual agreement.
28.3.
Yeah, I have to mutually agree for Article 22. Well, we have the C22.15 then.
I just highlighted those because, right. You know how we highlight them to make sure that all the numbers, references match before we finalize them?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because at 28.3, you both have to agree to open the contract. 28.4, one party can open the contract. As well as either party may reopen Article. But we can open those Article 22 and 18.
22 and 18 are automatic reopeners every year, if that what it's saying.
No. So 2215, if I remember right, is the provision on ability to fund under the COLA. So if the district doesn't have the ability to fund, we can submit and we have to talk about it.
Can't provide, and
Right.
of course, that's the. Let's just see the rest of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we can't, like I
Well, here,
said, I
I'll
can't
hand it
sign
out
it.
so everybody has a copy.
Yeah.
Duration is 2 weeks to bar. Where he said this.
And then the other ones are just the ratification and no changes, the ratification,
Yeah, we just.
Board of Commissioner approval, and then your certification ratification. So that's it.
So you'll be holding the other ones until.
Oh, no, wages, do you want, why don't we go through all the rest of these? We'll get them knocked out,
Yeah.
and then we'll hit wages and PPL.
Okay. Okay.
So, how long do you guys want?
15 minutes, full 30?
12,
Oh, you want to go through these? You're saying?
12, 15.
Go back through these? You're saying?
Yeah,
Oh.
do you have anything in there that you want to talk about now and rediscuss, or?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we'll go down and talk and then we'll.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock? Okay. Good. Okay. Good?